October 27, 1962. History remembers it as Black Saturday, the day humanity came closer to nuclear war than at any other moment in history. The world stood on the edge of annihilation. One decision, one submarine, one missile, one question. In Washington, leaders waited for the next move. In Moscow, commanders prepared for the worst. And somewhere beneath the Atlantic Ocean, inside a Soviet submarine cut off from communication, a single order could have changed the fate of civilization forever. For a few terrifying minutes, the future of humanity rested in the hands of just a handful of men. But what if no one backed down? To understand how close the world came to destruction, we need to go back to the beginning of the Cold War. After World War II, two superpowers emerged, the United States and the Soviet Union. They weren't fighting each other directly. Instead, they competed through politics, espionage, technology, and an ever-growing nuclear arms race. Both sides believed that whoever gained the upper hand could shape the future of the world. Then came Cuba. Just 90 miles from the American coastline, the Cuban Revolution brought Fidel Castro to power, turning the island into one of the Soviet Union's closest allies. For Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev, placing nuclear missiles in Cuba served two purposes. It would protect Cuba from another American invasion, and it would give the Soviet Union the ability to strike major U.S. cities within minutes. When American spy planes discovered the missile sites, President John F. Kennedy faced an impossible decision. Invading Cuba could start a nuclear war. Doing nothing could leave the United States dangerously exposed. Instead, Kennedy ordered a naval blockade, preventing additional Soviet military shipments from reaching Cuba. For 13 days, warships, bombers, submarines, and nuclear forces remained on high alert. Every hour increased the risk that a single misunderstanding could ignite World War III. But history was about to reach its most dangerous moment. Now imagine history taking a different path. Deep beneath the Atlantic, a Soviet submarine is surrounded by American naval forces, dropping practice depth charges intended only as warning signals. The crew, exhausted and unable to communicate with Moscow, believes war may have already begun. Instead of waiting, the submarine commander makes a different decision. A nuclear torpedo is launched toward the American fleet. Moments later, the explosion destroys a U.S. warship. Washington receives the first reports. There is only one conclusion. The Soviet Union has fired the first nuclear weapon. World War III has begun. Within minutes, emergency command centers activate across the United States. American strategic bombers take off. Intercontinental ballistic missiles are prepared for launch. Then the order is given. Nuclear missiles streak across the sky toward military bases deep inside the Soviet Union. Moscow responds immediately. Hundreds of Soviet missiles race toward North America. Air raid sirens echo through cities on both sides of the Atlantic. The conflict quickly spreads beyond the two superpowers. NATO declares that an attack on one member is an attack on all. Warsaw Pact forces surge toward Western Europe. Germany becomes the center of the largest conventional battle in human history. But conventional warfare lasts only hours. Tactical nuclear weapons explode across the battlefield. Cities vanish in blinding flashes. Communication networks collapse. Governments lose contact with military commanders. Panic spreads faster than information. Across Asia, allies are pulled into the conflict. Military bases become targets. Global shipping stops. Financial markets disappear overnight. Millions flee their homes with nowhere safe to go. Within days, civilization itself begins to break apart. The explosions are only the beginning. Massive firestorms send smoke and ash high into the atmosphere. Sunlight becomes blocked. Temperatures fall around the world. Scientists call this nuclear winter. Growing seasons shrink dramatically. Harvests fail across multiple continents. Food shortages become global. Entire economies collapse. Electricity, transportation, healthcare, and communication systems struggle or cease to function entirely. The pace of scientific progress slows to a crawl as nations focus on survival instead of innovation. Generations grow up in a world defined not by technological advancement, but by rebuilding from catastrophe. The future humanity once imagined never arrives. And one haunting question remains: would humanity ever recover? Fortunately, none of this happened. In reality, cooler heads prevailed. Diplomacy, restraint, and careful communication prevented the Cuban Missile Crisis from becoming the first nuclear world war. The missiles were eventually removed. The immediate crisis ended. And humanity was given another chance. History often celebrates the battles that were fought, but perhaps the greatest victory of the Cold War was the war that never happened. If you enjoy alternate history documentaries, subscribe for more stories exploring the world's greatest what-if scenarios. Because sometimes the most fascinating histories are the ones that almost happened.